Hello, you two. It's Alan. I was inspired to make a video about dealing with hair loss. This was inspired by at least one comment that I got on one of my videos because this winter I spent some time to look back through the comments from like the last year, and it was nice. It was actually motivating, kind of renewed my motivation to be on YouTube and make videos. And for those of you who wrote very nice and meaningful comments on my videos, thank you. I really appreciate that. So yeah, I thought I could speak to this, dealing with hair loss. It's been a process, for sure, a long process, both of losing some hair and evolving in my approach to dealing with it, or getting used to it. So I am glad that it didn't happen too suddenly, because like I'm 8.5 years on T now, and I have seen some people who have major hair loss within even the first year or two, and I feel like that would be probably mentally harder to deal with because just is so fast. So I have had a few years of thinning hair to kind of get used to it. I do feel like I'm quite used to it now. By the way, I gave myself a haircut a couple days ago. I tried to get rid of this line, like to blend it, but it's very hard when the lengths are so short. So first of all, here's a look. Okay. Sorry about the computer noise. Okay, so how did I deal with it? One thing was just time and getting more used to it over time. That definitely happened. Something else was kind of getting used to the idea, or just like kind of processing through the concept that I think treatments for hair loss, in my opinion, it's really not like a magic bullet. So I kind of let go of that. That was part of my process, because I did research treatments for hair loss, like the topical treatments like Rogaine, and I didn't want to get into, like, I considered doing that, but I did not want to get into it because I thought, like, well, it's only worth doing if I'm going to do it for the very long term, because the effect wears off relatively soon after you stop using it. So do I want to get into something where I'm going to have to use it like twice a day for forever, or however long I choose to do it? Like, no, that's not sustainable for me. And if I'm not gonna do it forever, or like, I'm gonna be balding eventually. So I was like, it just seems kind of fruitless. Sorry. I just didn't see that going in a useful direction for me personally. And then the pill, what is that called? Propecia or finasteride? Is that the pill, or is that the topical stuff? I don't know. Sorry I didn't do any research or refreshers, but I didn't want to do the pill for hair loss because similarly, like, it doesn't seem like a magic bullet, and do I want to be doing that forever? And not really. Like, I don't want to be taking an extra medication for years and years. And then each of these things can potentially have side effects, and with the pill, now I'm not a medical professional, but I think, as I recall, it works by decreasing the form of testosterone called DHT that's inside of you, because that's part of what causes baldness or activates baldness. But then, especially for trans men, there are possibly unwanted effects of reducing your DHT, like in terms of your physical transition. For example, I know that some trans guys try using topical, like a skin application of DHT on the part of the genital area on their dick, because sometimes it can make it a little bigger. And I've heard from guys on YouTube that sometimes when people tried that, it accelerates hair loss. So it's kind of like, do you want to risk having a bit of sacrifice for one of those physical elements or the other? And so I opted just to not pursue the pill. So yeah, part of my process was looking at those things, and then just over time gaining acceptance that if my hair was thinning, that was just going to happen sooner or later. I mean, if there was a magic cure, like a lasting cure for baldness, probably more people would be doing it and you would hear about it more. So, let's see, other stuff. It has been helpful for me to be conscious of this issue when I'm out and about around other people, other men. What I mean by that is like just observing other men, trans guys or cis guys or whatever, and just consciously noticing guys with thinning hair or bald guys. And number one, noticing how common that is, and when I see them kind of feeling like, well, yeah, we're in this together, so to speak. Like, I have a similar thing going on as that man over there, and just knowing that, being conscious of that, for me, it really helped, and it felt kind of good because it's very validating just as a man, like validating of gender, that this thing that I'm experiencing is a very common thing that all kinds of different men experience, and it is so often part of the male experience. So, in a sense, that felt good. I mean, I would still rather not be balding, but at the same time, that it felt good, better than not observing or realizing that. And just as a side note, I mean, I know that there are women, however you want to put that, people on an estrogen system or whatever, who do lose their hair through whatever means. And so that can be an experience of somebody of any gender, and I acknowledge that. And that, I mean, that's all kind of outside the scope of my video, though, and, you know, I'm just talking about male pattern baldness in people who identify as males. Anyway, yeah, so observing other men was helpful, and I guess sort of related to that is kind of specific to me, well, in relation to what I've already said, like this would not be limited to me individually at all, but just to talk about my personal experience. So my dad was bald, and he went bald from an early age, from his 20s, and he was 40 when I was born. So he was bald, like mostly bald, for the whole time that I knew him. I mean, he died when I was 8. But it's always felt really good to me to have similarities to my dad, whether of appearance or personality or whatever. So it just so happens that that has been helpful for me in dealing with hair loss. Because it's like, oh, this is something that I have in common with my dad, and there's something in that that feels good to me. And still, I would rather not lose my hair, but you know, it's part of my process. So I thought, why not do some show and tell? I can show you some pictures of him. So these pictures that I'm going to show you were from my dad's life from before I was born, but they were handy laying around. So here's one of him in his 20s on the side here. So he was pretty bald. And then here's one of him camping from his 20s or early to mid 30s or something. And this is probably also 20s or early to mid 30s. And he had the kind of 70s kind of look going on with the like longer, shaggier hair. And I like it's meaningful to me that I do have totally the same hair as he did, like the same color and curly. I mean, I these days never grow it out long enough to really look curly. Like even when it was kind of long before I cut my hair the other day, it was certainly not quite this long. So you can't totally tell, but I do have the same exact hair as him generally. So so anyway, a piece of advice could be maybe try to do that for yourself. Like think of either a family member or a friend or a famous person that you admire or something who has thinning hair or is bald, and then just think about your similarity to them, and maybe that would help. So, I feel like that pretty much sums it up. I'm trying to think if there's anything I forgot. I mean, it can always help to look online for photos of bald men that you think are good looking or that society thinks are good looking or something. Or similarly in your life, if you see somebody who's bald who you think looks good in your opinion, then that can feel validating or helpful. Yeah, so feel free to let me know if you have questions, or you can write a comment if you have suggestions for people dealing with baldness. Anyway, I'll stop here. It's not quite as long as usual. That's nice. Anyway, I hope you're doing well, people out there, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.